you will just lean back and relax, I'll tell you a little ghost story. Please don't hesitate to turn out your lights. I'm sure the warm glow from the picture tube will be sufficient to melt all your fears of the dark.
Good evening. Welcome to the Shamley Silhouette, yet another analysis of the master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock. I am your host, Zach Eastman. We made it to episode 5, and I want to thank once again Henry Jarvis for being on episode 4 and talking about Rope and digging into a younger generation's perspective on Hitchcock and what influence, if any, he had on the young man or any of his friends around him. If you want to listen to that episode, go to realnerdspodcast.com, and you can listen to episode 4, The Failed Teachings of Jimmy Stewart. It's not the full title, but again, we didn't really get to talk a lot about Rope because there's not much to discuss about Rope. It takes place in one room, and it's a play. I also want to thank, as usual, Brad Haig for getting this stuff up on the Real Nerds feed and moderating that website and making sure that you can have your Hitchcock goodness all day, every day. But now we're on to episode 5. And by the pedigree of our guest, it's very much the Empire Strikes Back of the Shamley Silhouette.
Hell yeah.
I have brought this gentleman here to discuss a film of Hitchcock's oeuvre that is probably his most lauded in terms of the award circuit, and most certainly one of the ones that we can't not talk about when we discuss Hitchcock. But it's also a film that puts us in a tricky position in regards to discuss it as a Hitchcock film, because for how much Hitchcock has involved in it, there is also the sticky fingers of one David O. Selznick on this project, who brought Hitchcock to America to make this adaptation of a very popular book by an author whom Hitchcock had already adapted to lesser success. It is a small little film about a big manor and a woman who keeps haunting it, and she doesn't even show her face in the movie. And it's Rebecca. And with me to discuss Rebecca, you know him from the Real Nerds podcast. You know him from the Real Nerds Pod Show. You know him from his Blame E.T. for Everything campaign. Please welcome Mr. James Hart.
Hey. Thanks. Thanks for
having
having me on your fun little thing.
Thank you for coming to my rescue to talk about Rebecca at a time when you are about to raise a child. Or not about to, are raising a child.
Yeah, I'm at the very beginning of 18 to 24 years, depending on how things go, of having somebody else live in my house.
I love that there's a range.
Yeah, you know.
You're a realistic parent.
Yeah, whatever. Raised till success.
Great, raised till success, indeed.
Yeah, I will say, I have a lot of experience doing podcasty stuff. I have not a lot of experience not talking on a podcast, though. So that was really awkward for the first, 5 minutes there where I'm like, wait, I'm supposed to not say anything. I got to be quiet.
Well, so
I'm not good at being quiet.
My assumption is that most podcasts do a pre-recorded intro and then get right into their interview, but I make them wait. And if there are other podcasts who do the same thing and I'm stealing their thunder, I apologize. I'm fairly sure I'm stealing someone's thunder.
No.
Anyway, I'm not here to talk about Stolen Thunder, the new Ben Stiller picture. We're here to talk about Rebecca.
Yeah. My favorite Hitchcock film.
Yes. So before we get into it, though, this is the Shamley Silhouette, and we always ask, how did you get into Hitchcock? How young do you begin your journey with the portly man from England who comes over and makes the scariest fucking movies and the most suspenseful movies, the most exciting movies of an older generation?
That's a really hard question because, Hitchcock is a cornerstone of film. And I've been into movies since before I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
So my family was a like watch a movie every Friday night kind of family.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more than just that because part of what happened was my brother and I are 7 years apart, and I'm the younger, which meant that there was always this careful balance when I was a kid where my parents were trying to find stuff that they could show us that would entertain both a 12-year-old and a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old and a 17-year-old. Like, it's a difficult span.
That's a hard gap.
Yeah.
Man.
And so sometimes they would go through little sprints where it's the perfect environment for you to grow a young film buff, because they decide like, oh, well, you guys have never seen Oklahoma, and so we're gonna go through and like educate you on musicals, and for the next few months, every couple movies we watch that on a Friday night will be a musical.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd have like a little list where they're like, oh, we got to show you Guys and Dolls and Singing in the Rain and all these different things that they were excited about and remembered well. And so Hitchcock films weren't super common in there, but there were a couple of them, right? So my mom, of course, was like, well, we have to watch Rear Window because she adores Rear Window.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a couple of them like that. I don't think, but not a lot. I mean, there's still a few I still haven't seen.
Would you say that Rear Window was the first then, or?
Yeah, Rear Window has definitely got to be the first.
Okay, because we've got it kept track now. It's The Birds for 3 of the guests, and then North by Northwest for 1 of them, and now Rear Window.
Yeah, I didn't see. Birds I saw like on TV at some point and thought it was weird, and so I didn't care. And then North by Northwest I didn't see for a while until I bought the Blu-ray as part of like my list of shame, where I was like, no, actually I was still living at home, so it would have been like late high school when I finally saw North by Northwest. It was sort of the first time that I went through a list of shame where I was like, at that point there were some things I'd missed. Like I'd never seen Jaws, I'd never seen North by Northwest, and it's too bad because I think there's some of those films, North by Northwest probably being one of them, that if you hit a kid at the right age, they'd probably really enjoy. Like I think a 13, 14-year-old finds North by Northwest great, and then by the time I was 18, 19, I was like, some of this is silly. But like awesome. Like you watch it and visually it's awesome.
Yeah.
But then at the same time you're like, this is kind of silly.
Oh, there's so many loopholes.
Oh yeah,
plot holes and all kinds of holes. Actually, it's funny you say that because like it's not a Hitchcock film, but when I was like 10 or 11, I saw the original Ocean's 11 before I saw the remake.
Oh sure.
And in my mind, the Frank Sinatra one was just as cool as the Soderbergh one.
Sure.
It doesn't do the same for me these days, but
sure.
but I get your point.
Yeah. There's a time where especially if it's presented to you a certain way. If you were 12 or 13 and somebody was like, "This is a Hitchcock film. He's a big deal, and this is North by Northwest, and it's a big deal. You should watch this movie." Similar to like how I saw Cool Hand Luke. Like I probably saw Cool Hand Luke when I was 12, and my dad was like, "I really love this movie. This guy eats a lot of eggs," and I was like, "That's weird."
That's another poster quote for a thing I'm gonna make on my phone.
And it's like, you end up thinking it's really boring and slow, but at the same time you appreciate like why your dad likes it. So a similar thing would have happened. I didn't see Rebecca until I started trying to check off some of the ones I'd never seen, like Lady Vanishes. And so I bought Rebecca and threw it in, and then by the time the movie was over, I was like, this fucking movie, like it's weird and different and super smart. And then there's Rebecca, and Rebecca specifically is so cool.
Yes.
I've said a number of times she is one of my favorite villains, and I think one of the best villains of all time.
I would agree. I'm going to be adding to that later that there's actually, if not 2 villains, then a villain and a henchman.
Totally. Yes.
And we'll talk about that henchman.
I consider her a henchman.
Oh,
yes.
Very. Okay, cool. So we're on the same page. But
yeah.
So you have seen a lot of the essentials though, like a Psycho or a Vertigo.
Of course.
Okay, yeah. So you do like you go through basically the universal hits. That is like 5 movies.
Yeah, but there's a couple good ones I haven't seen. Like I haven't seen Dial M. man, now they escape me. I'd love to actually do what you're doing at some point, and specifically go through and watch like a lot of the old Presents stuff if I could get a hold of it.
Yeah, they're all available on DVD, and they are on like Prime streaming.
Cool.
I would recommend DVD though, because it's cheap to get the whole series as a whole.
Yeah,
but since they're anthology, like there's no through line or like characters you're following around. So like it's just
you just jump in.
The only character you're following around is Hitchcock making jokes.
Yeah,
at the beginning and the end of the show.
It might be one of those things that's like Top Gear, where it's worth it to go find a list of like the ones that people think are really great. Just because you know that they're not going to always be.
I have a disc for you to borrow then when next time we see each other
Cool.
at my place, because that
would be great.
One of the box sets that I got to prepare for this journey has a disc that has like 10 top 10 episodes.
Mystery.
It has one of the best episodes, which is Lamb to the Slaughter, which is one that Hitchcock himself directed.
Oh, cool.
And it's not to spoil anything, but it's about a woman who kills a man with a certain piece of an animal's body.
Oh yeah, and then she feeds it to the cops. Yeah. No,
Okay.
I know.
Oh,
This
so
is is classic.
Okay.
I haven't seen it. I've heard about it many times.
Okay, yeah. Spoiler alert. It's you're
great.
watching it in the 50s, it's dark as shit.
Oh hell yeah, dude! If you're watching it today, it's dark as well. I haven't seen it, but the story itself is like my favorite murder level dope ass story.
Yeah, no, it's the way it's shot. It's shot for television, so it doesn't have the atmosphere to it. But it's almost like it's actually got a modern feel to it because of the fact that it's shot for television in that sense. So there's like a sinister angle to it because it's with key lighting and standard television drama lighting. So there's no dynamic lighting by any stretch of the imagination. Like there's no shadows and slashes across people's faces, stuff like that. So, but
my mom loved that episode. That's what you should do. If you get around to doing that episode and then get my mom on to talk about how, like, all she'll do is she'll just be going like, and then she feeds it to the cops. It's so smart. It might be good.
Can I do? I'll do a podcast with your mom called like Carol Describes Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yeah, Carol remembers Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Every episode, but she'll have to rewatch it to get reminded of it, and then we'll give her a couple days and then have her describe it with like hazy memory, because like that's how I am when I watch something. I'm like, and then the guy did the thing. I can't remember his name.
That was my pitch. We're super off track now, but that was my pitch to my friend Dan, who I used to be roommates with.
Yeah,
where I really want to do a podcast with him where I made him watch really shitty big budget films that I had seen but not recently, and then I was going to have him just describe them to me, and then we would just chat, because I really loved the idea of him watching specifically the third Resident Evil film, having not seen any of the others, and then he describes what happens, and then I would just like, it would slowly unlock that memory for me where I'd be like, oh yeah, and then there's a room full of 1 billion clones, and you don't know why.
That's how I've gotten to watch some of the films you've recommended. Like Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters comes from that exact description that you've done.
Yeah.
But so anyway, we're going to talk about Rebecca and not Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters.
But
though.
we should.
I will do a Jeremy Renner podcast at some point. Or a Will Ferrell podcast, and we will have to talk about it because they're executive producers.
There you go. Will Ferrell would do.
So anyway, we will talk a little bit about Rebecca, the film of the evening.
Academy Award winner Adam McKay's Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters.
He didn't direct it though.
No.
I think that man will do fine going forward. He's made 2 pretty good films. But, anyway, we're gonna be talking about Rebecca. Up the top, the film from 1940, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Why do I have to mention that he directs the movies each time? I've done this 4 weeks in a row. I keep saying directed by Alfred Hitchcock, and I'm like, that's not necessary, Zach. Stop
One of these
it.
days you'll do one that's not.
Yeah. Produced by David Amphetamine Selznick.
David Oxycodone Selznick.
Screenplay by Robert E. Sherwood and Joan Harrison. Joan Harrison, by the way, Hitchcock's longtime secretary, then turned associate producer on her own right, ended up running a lot of the television show. The adaptation was by Philip McDonald and Michael Hogan. and it's based on the book Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. We should talk a little bit about Daphne du Maurier because she's very essential to not just Rebecca, obviously, but also Hitchcock's career, because this is not the first time that Hitchcock does a du Maurier story. The first one he does is Jamaica Inn in 1939, still in London, with the noted director and actor Charles Laughton. I say noted director when he only directed one film, Night of the Hunter, and then was never able to make one again. But he was a very big actor prior to that. And Laughton, at the time of filming Jamaica Inn, had a lot of control over his sets, and he basically wasted a lot of Hitchcock's time. An adaptation of a book that du Maurier didn't even think too highly of, from what I understand. But Rebecca comes after Jamaica Inn, and Rebecca is a runaway success, to the same levels of Gone with the Wind degree at the time, which is the other more famous film that David O. Selznick produced, an adaptation of. But so Rebecca goes through a series of different drafts, different versions, through various different people, because David O. Selznick was a madman who strived for perfection to get the adaptation correct onto the screen. The best way to see the examples of how far he's willing to go with this is not even with Rebecca. You need to look at Gone with the Wind. I don't like Gone with the Wind. However, the behind the scenes of Gone with the Wind are some of the most amazing stories you will ever hear because of how insane everything is.
Yeah.
There's a search for the perfect person to play Scarlett O'Hara. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And
it ended up being the wife of the star of one of the stars of our movie today. There's a level of perfection that O. Selznick tries to keep hitting each time, partially because that's just how he was trained as a film producer, and partially because, like I said, he does amphetamines. So this is not going away, by the way, because a lot of decisions we'll talk about I attribute directly to the latter discussion. But at the time that he's trying to get Rebecca done, he also finally wins for Gone with the Wind and whatnot. Hitchcock is doing very well overseas and getting a lot of laudits and praise for films like The Lady Vanishes, The 39 Steps,
That's a good
The
one.
Man Who Knew Too Much, the original film with Peter Lorre, and Young and Innocent. These are all essential Hitchcock films that we will be talking about on a later episode. So he gets the opportunity to sign with Selznick and go to America. Once he gets into Selznick's grasp, he drives Hitchcock fucking nuts. Selznick drives Hitchcock up a fucking wall. Basically, Rebecca boils down to two very strong personalities fighting for control over a project. And when it's all said and done, the predominant vision of Rebecca is David O. Selznick in the respect of the overall story. What is in Hitchcock's control is what we are seeing on the screen and how it's being presented. So that might have sounded like I said the same thing, but basically Hitchcock's interpretation and the way he sets the scene, blocks the scene, directs his actors, shows off what he's bringing to the story while staying in the parameters of what Selznick is setting up as the script and the story. So basically, Selznick wants to adapt Rebecca almost page for page, which, if you look throughout history of books being adapted into films, that's not possible because
or a good idea
because books and films are two very different mediums.
And from what I haven't read the book, but from what I've heard, there's a whole lot of filler in that book, and a lot of sort of nonsense, and even the end of the book is a lot different.
Yeah, and we'll get to that because it has a lot to do with how Maxim de Winter is portrayed.
Yeah.
So anyway, the film is made though. We have amongst our we have a slew of stars in this film. We have Joan Fontaine playing the second Mrs.
awesome.
De Winter.
Yeah.
The reason
the
she is only
character.
called the second Mrs. De Winter, actually, she's not even called that in the movie. In the title, it's called I.
Yeah.
That's how she's presented as I.
Uh-huh.
That's because the character of Rebecca is the reason why she doesn't get an actual name,
Right.
amongst other things.
Yeah, we'll talk in a minute about
and then
the implications.
Laurence Olivier, the noted
Chin.
Chin, the Crimson Chin, and Laurence Olivier, noted for his Shakespeare adaptations, his marriage to Vivien Leigh, and his portrayal by Kenneth Branagh in My Week with Marilyn.
I was being an alcoholic dick.
Yeah, yelling at Michelle Williams. That is what Laurence Olivier was known for. He plays...
You're beautiful, but I hate you.
Yeah. He plays Maxim de Winter, owner of Manderley. And then we have the High Vulcan Priestess from Search for Spock playing Mrs. Danvers. That is not a joke. That is the truth.
I bet.
Dame Judith Anderson plays Mrs. Danvers. And then you also have George Sanders, Reginald Denny, Gladys Cooper, C. Aubrey Smith, Nigel Bruce, Melville Cooper, Leo G. Carroll, Leonard Carey. There is a slew of popular character actors who, before and after, have extensive careers.
Some of whom show up for like 2 seconds.
Yeah. Well, there's one that shows up for more than 2 seconds. That's my favorite, and we'll talk about him because I think he's some kind of meta joke in the movie.
Okay.
So anyway, we'll break into Rebecca right now, and go through the plot of Rebecca De Mornay's book. So the film opens with the Selznick Ranch. And showing you how Selznick is very proud of his ranch.
Is it really?
That's the Selznick production offices, or like.
Oh, you mean the? Sorry, you're talking about the Selznick sign at the beginning.
The
Selznick
sign at the
picture.
beginning is
I thought you were talking about the opening shot of the house.
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
Gotcha.
The Selznick thing.
Yes.
It was a
Which
bad,
is a weird, awkward thing. Yeah.
It's a bad joke to.
I forgot that it's even there because it happens, and I'm like, what the fuck is this about?
Yeah, and I'm going to say that the opening credit is. David O. Selznick is proud to bring you the picture adaptation of Daphne du Maurnay's international bestseller, Rebecca. Yeah. So already we're dealing with Hitchcock not
There's
having...
like 3 big egos, including Rebecca. 3 big egos names before you even get to Hitchcock's name.
Yeah, exactly. David O. Selznick, Daphne du Maurier,
and Rebecca all get a bigger lead than Hitchcock.
Yeah, which, I mean, I just imagine him sitting there going like, "It's fine. I'm gonna make foreign correspondent.
You
and it's
dick.
Better."
Yeah, you dick.
So we get this kind of ethereal, atmospheric opening credit sequence, and then, like a ghost, we move through the iron gates outside the property, and move through the windy road up to Manderley, hearing the infamous or the famous opening lines of the book, which are now the opening lines of the film. I dreamt of Manderley again, and I wandered through the windy road, and then I saw Mr. Toad, and he had a wild ride. Sorry, I had to do that. And then you push in on the manor, but it's all in a crushed black.
Yeah.
So we don't know what's happened there yet, but we do see a light poking through. So maybe
is it destroyed at the beginning?
Or
is she remembering it in?
I believe she's remembering it because since it's so crushed in darkness.
Yeah.
My assumption is that we're led to believe that that it's still standing.
Yeah.
As if there's something very terrible happened there that no one ever knew about.
Yeah, but it's darker.
Yeah.
It's not as cool of a shot as like later when she first sees it and the house looks really good.
Right.
It definitely in that first shot is.
Yeah, but it's like, it's almost,
it's a defeated house.
Yeah, and it's partially silhouetted to not show the details. So,
right.
But then like I said, there is a light that shines through.
Okay.
So for all we know, the house is still operative.
Yeah.
So, and then it cuts to a cliff, where in the south of
such
France.
an awkward cut too, because you don't know what the fuck you are.
Yeah.
Like,
but it disorients you, and it gets you, and that's kind of like, it's part of like Hitchcock's ability to kind of like push you into a situation head front. And then kind of have you deal with it. I mean, it's a little antithetical to how he builds up the suspense, but the winding down to Manderley, then cutting to that, we've already set a mood of some sort, and now we just kind of dive into the action.
Yeah.
And we also are remembering it from I's perspective,
right?
Which of course indicates that
and it starts the red herring of Max having a dark past.
Yeah, exactly.
Early on, like when you first see him, you're like, what's with this dude? He's quiet and doesn't like to talk to this bossy lady.
Yeah, no. What is Laurence Olivier thinking?
How many people has he stabbed?
Yeah, is he thinking about how I'm going to be Kenneth Branagh when I grow up? You know,
yeah.
That's a fun joke. We should keep going with that one.
Yeah, beat it to death. It'll be great.
Yeah, with a barley stick. And so, but he's staying at Monte Carlo, in the south of France,
But it's off season, and none of the popular people are there right now.
Not only that, but the least popular person is there, Mrs. Edith Van Hopper.
Oh, she's the best.
We'll talk about her because I think she's responsible for everything that happens in the book, or in the movie. So Mrs. Edith Van Hopper employs the second Miss De Winter, as a traveling companion. Yeah. So basically a secretary or an assistant of some kind. / hey, play cards with me because I'm a lonely fuck.
Yeah. She's literally, there's a great joke in there where she says something about like, oh, a few years ago there was this young writer, but every time he would see me, he would run away. He must have, what was it? She's got he must have been madly in love with me and just couldn't control it. Like she twists, like literally people run away from you because you're the worst.
So you know how sometimes on the show when I say I wish you could live in my head for a day?
Yeah.
That's somewhat close to that. I don't have that type of delusion, but I have delusion. Hers is specific.
Yeah. She thinks that people run away from her because they're just madly in love with her.
Yeah, exactly.
She's just the best.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, of course.
She kind of feels like Cinderella's stepmom.
Yes,
like, she feels like,
and it's not even like she's doing anything mean specifically. It's just like she does have a hold over because of the employment thing,
and she starts the main theme and oppression of Rebecca early on, because in that scene, there's a scene after like they've talked to Max for the first time, where she says something. Oh no! It's after they tell her that she's getting married, and she like just lays all this like shame and bullshit on top of her, and is like, well, wait, have you been having sex? Well, she doesn't say it this way, but she's like, have you been having sex with him when you're not even married yet? And
have you been doing something that you shouldn't?
Yes, it's the way she says it.
That's the way they'd say it in the 40s, yeah.
And she makes all these like terrible comments about like, well, clearly Max is, Mr. De Winter's tastes have changed and he must be mad, and I don't know what could he possibly see in you because you're nothing.
But you know what she says though, right? Before that, she's like, why am I? Oh no, she says, goodbye, my dear. I wish you the best of luck. I think it's one of those like opposite day curses where she wishes her nothing but insanity and madness.
Yeah.
Because what we get for the rest of the movie is poor Joan Fontaine going crazy.
Yeah.
But
she's going crazy for exactly that same problem, right? Like
exactly
the whole. I mean, we're getting into it, but the whole problem of the movie and what Rebecca actually is and her whole presence is all tied to Joan Fontaine's character's inability to believe that anyone could actually like her,
right,
or that she is actually worth anything,
right,
and constantly measuring herself against this imaginary person who then, like a ghost, haunts the rest of the picture in this daunting, like, unbelievably oppressive way,
right? Which we'll get into.
And she starts that.
Yeah.
It starts in that little moment.
Yeah. In that time, though, she does meet Max De Winter.
Yeah.
They kind of start a whirlwind romance where he's the most distant lover in terms of just like a mental and ethereal presence.
Yeah.
Like he has no
in great Hitchcockian ways. Like he takes her, drives her around to pretty places, reminds her that she's stupid, tells her what they should do, and then takes her back and tells her, "Oh, you're great."
Yeah.
Once
again, Hitchcock has a lot of problems in his stories,
and it's not even just her. Like, who knows? The book is probably somewhat similar. Some of it is of the time, and also the people they're emulating, and like none of it's good. It's just one of those things that when you watch it today, when he calls her stupid, you're like, "Wait, what?"
And it happens way too often.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And it happens like at the same time that he could be like, punching her chin or like being really cutesy. He's like, "Oh, you're just such a little idiot."
And
you're like, "Wait, what?"
And we're not talking like punch her in the chin,
No,
like
no,
sock her on the jaw.
No, I
It's
mean like
that,
Casablanca, like
yeah, like here's looking. At
yeah,
you,
no,
kid.
here's looking at you, idiot.
Which, by first of all, that's not the line in Casablanca.
I
Here's
know.
looking at you, you idiot. Second of all, he doesn't punch her chin,
Yeah.
as you said it in Casablanca. He holds her chin and goes, "No, no. Here's looking at you, kid."
Yeah, you're right.
And then he shoots Conrad Veidt, and the whole movie is awesome.
I always remember it as like a kind
Yeah.
like rubbing of his fist against her chin.
Yeah.
I guess you're right. It's more of a grip.
Yeah, exactly.
Either way, you know what I'm saying. He
Yeah.
Max
It's 40s love.
Max yes. Max tends to love her while reminding her she's stupid.
Exactly.
So it's a cutesy stupid she has.
Yeah, it's a problem. But
Yeah.
anyway, but the bottom line is she loves him, so I guess we're going on this journey.
Yeah.
So and there's actually some really interesting use of the Hitchcock uses a lot of driving and shots in his films, and therefore there's also the rear projection stuff. And I actually think that this is one of the top rear projection driving scenes because of how much character information we're getting from both De Winter and her. We're getting a lot of her insecurity and a lot of his isolated and distant nature, and how that's going to interact.
And I do want to say before we get too far and I forget, just to vindicate him some, Max, I actually really love their relationship and the romance of the movie once you know the actual story, because the paranoia of the film the first time you watch it, and her lack of self-confidence is what causes you to actually, and her, to misinterpret what Max is trying to do. He actually loves her for not fitting into society and being a little bit ignorant to all these things, and being more simple because she's so different than what he's afraid of.
Right.
So he loves all those things about her, but the whole point of like the purpose of the film is she's insecure about those things. So your first watch, you're like, Max is kind of a dick, and then when you watch it, after that, yes, he calls her an idiot and stuff like that, but he actually genuinely cares about her and loves that she's different, and that's why he's drawn to her. And so I think it's actually a good romance the second or third time you watch it.
Yeah.
So just in defense of Max,
I don't disagree with you. My feeling on it is that it has similar issues to The End of Suspicion, which comes after this, where the deviousness of Cary Grant in Suspicion is immediately wrapped up in a 5-minute. Oh, it's not what you think it was. It was actually this.
Yeah.
In Rebecca, it's better written to explain away his foibles.
Sure.
I don't think I've never really thought it makes him like a very likable fella.
Yeah, he's not a great husband.
No.
He's not good at communicating.
Yeah.
But I do believe he loves her.
I get that at the very least from the dialogue.
Right.
Yeah, so but again, it is also, there is a context thing to go on in there. But anyway, though, because we'll get to that when the reveal comes up. But so anyway, Mrs. Van Hopper's going to take I away from Max, and so Max says, "Well, let's get married." And then that's when Hopper puts the gypsy curse on them, because they get married very instantly. They get their marriage certificate dropped off the roof or in the second level, and she gets a bunch of flowers thrown in her face. And she lays in them like a pillow. Like these must be comfy flowers.
He's very particular that it not be a big wedding or a big to do. We don't want a lot of rumor or talk.
Yeah. Well, I think it's mainly because he doesn't want Mrs. Edith Van Hopper eating all the food.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because she like volunteers like, well, I've been employing this woman for the summer, so clearly I'm like her mom and should walk her down the aisle and shit. And you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you, woman?
And you have to stop Mrs. Edith Van Hopper and go, no, lady, we're good.
No one likes you.
No, yeah, sorry, ma'am. I'm sure your daughter loves you, and she needs you.
It's like
but this gal don't.
it's the way I treat my dog when he's like eating something he's not supposed to, where you just want to look at her and go, no one loves you. Today, no one loves you, lady. Yeah. But she's great. I actually do love her. She's amazing.
By the way, Mrs. Edith Van Hopper, played by Florence Bates, a character actress who often played grand dame characters. She died in 1954, so had a long career.
Yeah.
But so anyway, they get married. They move to Manderley. The moment they drive up to Manderley, it's raining, so doom is ahead.
It's a beautiful house, though.
It is
huge house.
which is actually a miniature.
Okay.
And the shot of the house, the wide shot of the house is a miniature, and the little car is just a little miniature car driving down. Which, if you look at it on the Criterion Blu-ray, I'm sure you'll see that there's no people in there.
Oh yeah, you can tell on the Blu-ray that it is not.
So it's an elegant version of what it looks like when we play with Matchbox cars or Hot Wheels. But none of us had a Manderley playset.
Yeah.
Which, that would be cool. And you could have a little figurine that closes the window in the West Wing.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about that because that's a puppet.
Oh.
But so they get it to Manderley. Excuse me, I am sorry.
No, you're good.
We get to Manderley. They open up the doors. The whole staff is there to greet her. In one shot, cuts back to Joan Fontaine and Laurence Olivier walking in, and then it cuts back to the shot of the staff, and in like a ghost walks in Judith Anderson when she wasn't established in that first space. There's a reason for that, is that even though she hadn't been established in the previous shot, Hitchcock wanted her to kind of appear into the shot as if though she shouldn't belong.
Yeah. She shows up like a ghost a lot.
Exactly. And she moves like a ghost too. Judith Anderson is wonderful in this film.
She is.
It is one of the scariest fucking villains in a movie that you will ever see. Henchman. Yes, sorry, henchman. And then so she meets everybody. She tries to get acclimated to Manderley society. She meets Max's sister and her husband, played by Nigel Bruce, who is I want to make sure I get his name correct here. Major Giles Lacey.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Beatrice's husband. I've talked about Nigel Bruce before on the first episode. He was Dr. Watson in the Sherlock Holmes Dr. Watson films of the 40s with Basil Rathbone.
Oh.
So he has a compunction for being bumbling and rather kind of flippant, or in the case of Dr. Watson, kind of like aloof. I think you get all three in here because he has one of my favorite lines in the films. Is just like he's basically trying to figure out what Rebecca likes to do or what she does. Like, does she like riding? Does she like dancing? She's like, it's a good thing you don't like sailing. Uh-oh. And I'm just like, oh.
Do you ride side saddle or straight? Oh, I forgot you don't ride horses. It was 2 seconds ago you said you don't like horses, but I forgot it.
Because he's like, I'm just trying to figure out what you do.
Yeah. What would you say? You do.
Yeah, exactly. Do you salsa? I don't know. I don't. Well, you must teach me then. He's really the line before she meets him. He goes like, so it's only a matter of time before we meet that chorus girl he picked up in France. Why would you say she's a chorus girl? Well, you met her in France. Makes sense, right? And then she just comes in, and he's just like, oh shit. And so, anyway, so she's trying to get acclimated to everything. She meets with Mrs. Danvers throughout different scenes, and already they're off to an icy start.
Yeah, there's that letters scene where she's like, this is where Rebecca would sit, or Mrs. De Winter would sit and do her letters. You can sit and do your letters. And I'm thinking, who's she going to send letters to? Who was Rebecca sending all these letters to? Who's got time for letters?
Well, we will find out who Rebecca would have been sending letters to, because it turns out there's a lot of letters she could have sent. Mm-hmm. Which they have a couple different conversations about the different parts of the house. In a scene before that, they talk about like, well, you're here in the East Wing. He's never used the East Wing.
Yes.
Mrs. De Winter was in the West Wing,
because that's where the poisoned rose is under glass.
And only a kiss will break the spell.
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast.
Because Max is a beast.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing this movie is missing is Jerry Orbach as a talking candlestick.
Oh, absolutely.
But so anyway, and she shows her the outside of the old Mrs. De Winter's door, and the camera does a really cool thing. Like the camera, Hitchcock's camera is absolute throughout all of his films, everything is meant to kind of build on the suspense. In the case of Rebecca, we're building on the mystery of Rebecca. Who is Rebecca? Who was the old Mrs. De Winter? And he does this really well. Although there is a shot when he's pushing in on Mrs. De Winter, Rebecca's door, empty, just after Mrs. Danvers and I have walked away.
Mm-hmm.
But in front of it is Jasper the dog, and he's just kind of sitting there. And I'm just like, my Riff Tracks brain went into my head, and when it keeps pushing into there and the dog's there, I go, ruh-roh, which is not inappropriate given what we're going to find out.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of move in on suspense.
That Rebecca got reincarnated as a dog.
Oh, my God. That would have been amazing. Cujo, but Rebecca.
The dog's been setting fires the whole time.
Rebecca takes the form of a dog and fights Dee Wallace in a car.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Stephen King probably wrote that. I'm fairly sure he wrote that. He writes everything. But anyway, so, and there's a lot of use with the camera and also setting up different shots to amplify the suspense of Rebecca. Many times whenever we talk about Rebecca in any way, shape, or form, there is a dramatic music cue and then a camera move or a lighting move. Like when Beatrice, Max's sister, saying he loved Rebecca, and then that was intentionally shot separately. So they shot Beatrice first and then Joan Fontaine and sliced it together just so they could get the shot of Beatrice losing light and Joan Fontaine gaining light. So it's a special effect in camera.
Cool.
The visual effects of Rebecca are unsung. There's a whole featurette on the Criterion Blu-ray that you can look at that points out with I can't remember his name, but he's a visual effects guy who actually worked on Search for Spock.
Oh, fun.
And he actually mentions Judith Anderson in the whole thing. That's why I made that joke at the beginning. That and I'm a dork.
I love the one where they're watching their own videos of when they were having fun a week and a half earlier, and then she asks a question and he turns the projector off, and then it just goes into hard spotlight on their eyes,
and
as he's just I'm an evil bastard, and you're like, whoa,
right? Which from a certain light, I'm like Orson Welles.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
I was like, oh wait, no, wrong movie. He's not a newspaper magnate.
There's some definite noir in there.
They're both in big houses, that I know. But and then also scenes with the lawyer or the manager of the estate.
Oh yeah.
When it was what was Rebecca like, and he goes, she was the most lovely woman I'd ever known. And then the camera kind of pulls back. We don't need to know anything further than that. We don't need to know the specifics just yet.
Except that he's full of shit.
He's communicating via the camera that we know that, at the very least, Rebecca held something over these people.
Yeah.
Whether it was sway, charm, or or something nefarious.
Mm-hmm.
We know that's how he's communicating the mystery while keeping it a mystery.
Yeah.
And that
she's never going to measure up.
Yeah, and that inherently is what Hitchcock's able to bring to the table to make this not just an adaptation of a book that millions of people read at the time. It's also what makes it rewatchable to this day, amongst other things. At some point, Joan Fontaine and Max go through a tour of the grounds. They stumble across a beach house near the ocean. An ocean house.
Yeah.
It's basically
it's like a dock house.
It's a dock house. Yeah. Max doesn't want to go down to that area, but
fervently.
Yeah, but the second Mrs. De Winter says, "Yeah, sure. Let's go," and he goes, "I guess so."
She's chasing the dog because the dog's freaking
Jasper, and then they run into one of he's a what's his name?
Oh yeah,
the beach hermit. The beach hermit of Manderley.
Is that how he's credited?
Ben the beach hermit. Played by Leonard Carey, and he's
how many times has Matthew McConaughey played Ben the Beach Hermit?
Oh, Moondog from Beach Bum.
Oh my gosh.
You know what? I think if they remake Rebecca,
they are
Matthew McConaughey.
Actually, yes. No. Next year's Rebecca remake with Lily James needs to have
Matthew
McConaughey as Ben the Beach Hermit.
Oh my God,
that's really good.
Who's playing Max De Winter in that remake? I haven't even looked.
Armie Hammer.
Armie Hammer. Ooh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Yeah.
It's not Laurence Olivier, but it's good.
No, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, it was better than my choice, Adam Sandler. So that is not true. I would not suggest that whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think Judith Anderson should rise from the grave and play Mrs. Danvers again, but because I don't think you can top that.
No.
But so anyway, she meets Ben the Hermit. Ben the Hermit's like, I didn't see nothing. She's not coming back, and so already more stuff about Rebecca. The second Mrs. De Winter is trying further to acclimate herself to the house, and Mrs. Danvers...
She wants so bad to be loved.
She does. So much so that she does finally agree to see Rebecca's room with a guided tour by the creepy Mrs. Danvers.
Well, she doesn't... No, she sees somebody in the window, and she actually creeps in first, and Danvers catches her like a ghost.
Exactly. No, so yeah. So I'm wrong, yes. So because she sees that shot of Mrs. Danvers closing the doors in the West Wing, which what I was alluding to earlier. That's a puppet because it wouldn't register properly if they had used from that distance a human.
Sure, yeah.
So, and it's also kind of creepy because it's a puppet because it's kind of stilted.
Because it moves weird, yeah.
It's almost like it's a ghost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which at that point, the first time you're watching it, that's kind of what you think.
So let me ask you a question. There are ghosts in that house. Who are you going to call? The fire department. Oh, okay. Right, good. Just wanted to make sure. I mean, I think Jason Reitman has a different idea in mind. But anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, she gets a guided tour of Rebecca De Winter's room, which is...
And her lingerie.
Yeah, made by nuns in Naples.
Yes. And she refers to it, would you like to see her underwear? Here, let me open these weird slidey drawers full of underwear. The underwear is all made by nuns in Naples. And you're like, what?
Those slidey drawers are cool, though.
Yeah.
I want those.
That's when you get this sort of weird...
for my boxers.
Pseudo-sexual tension between Danvers and Rebecca.
Yeah. There is an underlying subtext going on throughout the film, which this is not the first time Hitchcock touches on a homosexual or LGBTQ subtext.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's presented in the most elegant of lights, but it is the 1940s, so it's just kind of there.
It's one of those things you have to take from its time. I think you assume. I think it's safe to assume
that she was obsessed with him or with her. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean from a writing perspective, like you're gonna assume that everyone involved doesn't have the best understanding of that, and that we used to be very familiar with the pseudo-homosexual villain, so it's not.
Yeah. No.
Unusual,
Yeah. I mean,
we can assume the worst here.
Yeah.
As far as intentions are concerned, is my point. But that's where we start to get this idea that like she was somewhat obsessed with Rebecca.
Right, and again, these are themes that Hitchcock has dealt with in other films, whether it's North by Northwest or Rope and stuff like that. These are films that he has touched into this issue. This in particular, though, is interesting because of how it plays into the whole ghost story element of everything.
Yes.
I do feel that if we're talking about Rebecca as a ghost story, or I'm not going to call it a horror film, although you could...
I think the tropes are definitely there.
Yeah, it's there. Okay, so anyway, if we call Rebecca a horror film, a ghost story and stuff like that, but I mean, if you look on it in a shelf, it's categorized as drama because that's how someone wants to sell it. Through the ghost story element of it, it lays into the theory that I presented at the top of the show that you agree with, which is that Mrs. Danvers is one of the best henchmen to a ghost ever.
Yeah.
Or at least the idea of something.
It allows you as the viewer the first time you watch it to imagine a couple different scenarios. You can imagine that there's actually a ghost. You can imagine that there's not a ghost, but in a Scooby-Doo Mystery Team style way, there is this lady who is using the idea of a ghost to taunt this woman. And then the third version is actually that there is no ghost or conspiracy, and actually just that Mrs. De Winter, the new Mrs. De Winter, is unable to reconcile reality with her own view of herself.
Right.
And I think it's a combination of the last two.
Yeah.
Is reality, right? I don't think that Danvers... I actually think that Danvers doesn't like her, but I don't think she has, like, negative intentions towards her until... even the dress sequence is I'm not entirely convinced that she's trying to be mean there. It's almost... That sequence, which is part of what comes up next is her almost trying to resurrect her and to some degree as well. You know, Danvers doesn't go super evil till the end.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that in that moment, I think there's a level of taunting, but
definitely.
It's almost like Danvers is trying to like figure out or figure the new wife out.
Right.
Because even she feels unsure because like up till now, like the new wife has been lying about breaking a piece of china and quote unquote bumbling around the house from her point of view, which is inexcusable when the former Mrs. De Winter was in everyone else's mind an elegant lady, lovely woman, blah blah blah. But which, by the way, really quickly, Scooby-Doo Mystery at Manderley. That's the next direct-to-video Scooby-Doo movie. Like, zoink, Scoob, we've got to go solve the mystery of the De Winters.
Yeah.
Laurence Olivier. That was dumb. Anyway, moving on.
I want to see Scooby-Doo fall in love with Laurence Olivier.
Oh, my God. Is Scooby-Doo in a dress? Because he's got to fool Laurence Olivier in this one.
All buttoned up right to his neck, and he's like, oh,
yeah,
you like me?
Yeah.
But I'm a dog.
But then he finds out. But then they get into a fight, and then they run through the same background to a 1960s groove song.
Yeah,
that's a wonderful idea, and I think Warner Brothers should contact us immediately.
I think that's what the Lily James movie is, actually. I think Armie Hammer plays the voice of.
Did James Gunn write it?
Yeah. This is James Gunn's Rebecca. Yeah.
I mean, I loved Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Ben Wheatley, I think it is.
Yeah, I love Super. I love all of James Gunn's films. Slither's great, so I know that his Rebecca will be wonderful.
Yeah.
James Gunn's Rebecca in theaters never, unfortunately. So anyway, though, she goes into the correspondence room, calls Mrs. Danvers in, and says, "Look, bitch, I'm the new Mrs. De Winter."
Hell yeah, I love that scene.
That is one of my favorites. It's like, I am Mrs. De Winter now. Yes. And there's this look on Joan Fontaine's face, which is just like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
If you're in a theater in the 40s, you go, oh damn.
Yeah.
But they didn't say oh damn like that.
It's a moment where she really puts her foot down and like, and if not for the next big event in the film, I think it would have been like you kind of feel like that character has turned there and she's found some of her confidence, and like that could have been the arc of the film until the big sunken shoe drops.
Right.
So
and again, this is it's a lot more agency from her character than we've seen throughout the film in terms of like making a decision on her own, because up until then it has been about while we are empathetically and sympathetically in her shoes, her trying to figure out how to conform to this lifestyle and kind of figure it out. In this one, she proclaims an identity. What's more, she says to Max, "Hey, I want to throw a costume ball like they did in the old days." And he goes, "Whatever, put that silly idea in your head. Have you been talking to my sister?" So, like, again, some of that classic romantic dialogue.
I love you. You're so dumb.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
it's a problem. I'm not disagreeing that it's a problem.
We say The Big Sick is one of the best rom-coms in years. I think it's Rebecca. But so they're going to do a costume ball, and she asks, "Who are you going to go as?" And he goes, "I don't. That's the privilege of me being the host of the house." And I'm like, no. I want to see Laurence Olivier in a kangaroo costume.
No, I love it. That's because that's my answer.
That's your. Oh, so you won't do a costume for Halloween?
Fuck
or like,
no.
Really?
Yeah, I'm an adult. I don't have to. I have to, like, I am 31, almost 2 years old. I get to make my own decisions.
You are essentially like Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi sitting in their house on Halloween, and when a trick-or-treater comes up, you just find a way to take your teeth out.
No, I'll give kids candy. Why do you think I had a kid? I dress her up now so that way everyone pays attention to her and doesn't give a shit about the fact that I'm wearing a T-shirt.
What does the T-shirt say? It says, "I don't want to be here."
It says, "I was on the top of the stack."
But so anyway, she decides, I'm going to decide to design a costume for myself.
Yeah.
And it'll be a big surprise. And she's we didn't mention it earlier, but she does sketches. She's an artist.
Yeah, the sketch is real bad in the movie.
Yeah, which
But
I mean,
it's
well,
fine.
yeah, the sketch of Max de Winter is very much a
And
cartoon
he's like,
drawing.
"Oh, you're so bad at things. Look how big my nose is. Oh, it's so cute how bad at things you are."
Yeah, just pay attention to the distance because
good thing
I'm
you don't
not
need to work.
drawing. Yeah, whoa. So she's having a hard time figuring out a costume idea. Mrs. Danvers walks in with her thrown away sketches like a creepazoid and says like, "Hey, I found these drawings," or was it Robert or one of the other people found these drawings thrown away? Did you intend to throw them away? No, or yes, I did because I'm trying to figure out a costume. And she goes, "Well, why don't you check out one of the paintings in the hallway? They may give you some ideas." She points out to the second Mrs. De Winter the painting of an old ancestor of Max's, Caroline De Winter,
I think so.
who has this kind of like white
Big
simple dress gown,
Floofy leftover from shit. What's the
It's like Bo Peep's outfit before she became a badass in Toy Story 4.
Yeah, it's leftover costumes from Gone with the Wind.
Yes, it is. It is David O. Selznick on amphetamines going like, "Fuck it, recycle it."
Yeah.
But so anyway, she decides, "Hey, I'm going to do that costume," and then they hold their masquerade ball. The manager of the state comes as a professor. Giles comes as a strong man and gets a funny little inflatable weight. And his wife Beatrice, who's Max's sister, comes in like a knight outfit of some kind. It's almost like she gave up on a knight costume, or some kind of like gypsy costume or something like that. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But nobody else knows what she's gonna do. She descends down the stairs. She says, "Hello, Mr. De Winter." Max turns around and goes, "What the fuck are you wearing?"
It is. It's a vicious response.
And then Hitchcock went, "Lawrence, come here. I think you should probably say, go upstairs and put that away. We can't use the word fuck."
Yeah.
Dang. Now action. But so anyway, she goes upstairs, confronts Mrs. Danvers, and then Mrs. Danvers does her Bond plot villain reveal, where she says like, "I've hated you from the moment you walked in here.
You'll never be good enough.
You'll never be good enough for her. You're just an imposter. You're just a little fool." All the things essentially that Mrs. Van Hopper was saying to her in nicer ways.
Yeah.
So maybe Mrs. Van Hopper didn't put a curse on him. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then she throws herself on the bed because she's so sad, and Mrs. Danvers opens up a window that is steeped in fog outside and says, like, "Why don't you come over to the window for some air? Why don't you just go away from Manderley? Or get away from it all?
Yeah.
Or better yet, just walk off this ledge walk off right now. Walk off this window. Look at it. Look down there. It's so easy." And the way he shoots it, because the fog's rolling in, you can kind of make out the distance, but not that much.
Yeah.
So already, like, Hitchcock's kind of playing with your perception a little bit, but he's also framing them in such a way that, like, it's this very eerie, atmospheric horror that really, I think one of the reasons why Judith Anderson is so scary in the movie is because we feel terrified for Joan Fontaine. Because we believe that Joan Fontaine is afraid of her.
Yeah.
That's what makes her creepy. I talked about it on the Psycho episode, but...
And you don't quite know what she's capable of either, right? Like, in that scene, you're not sure how crazy Danvers is and whether or not, like, would she just push her?
Yeah.
Like, what is her motivation here? Especially because she can't get whatever it is she wants, right? If what she wants is she wants Rebecca back, like, you can't get that. So you're a complete wild card.
Exactly. And she's very much she's I don't want to say she's holding back anything, but like she's very reserved. She's very curt. But her politeness is her secret weapon of villainy, because she's basically doing everything that the boss tells her to do, but she's twisting it in the most manipulative fashion.
Right.
Which, again, does tie into Hitchcock writing or being attracted to characters who are female that do the manipulation twisty thing. which again is an issue in a lot of films. In
Yeah.
this particular film, though, I think it's essential to the growth of Joan Fontaine's character.
Yeah.
Is it great from a modern perspective? Not really, but take it on its terms and you'll enjoy it.
But also because she's a villain, it's not like she's
Yeah,
not...
she is. She's not.
And
She's
in
not
this
who we're
case-
rooting for.
Maybe because she's not doing it to a man, it doesn't feel like a statement about women and more a character decision, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's actually a genuine piece of her character, and not a sign of a worse, problem with the people making the film, right?
Agreed. Yeah. And again, there is a problem with the person making it, but
But
that's neither here nor there for this particular conversation.
yeah.
Anyway, but just as she's about to, pretty much contemplate jumping off that fucker.
Yeah.
There's a big shot of a flare gun in the sky through the fog. You see it. There's a boat that's been found, or there's a boat down. So they've got to help. So that everybody from the party rushes out to the sea to help, and amidst all that chaos, a boat is found at the bottom of the ocean.
Yes.
And in that boat is a body that we shouldn't be finding
on the deck.
Because that boat was the late Mrs. De Winter's boat, and
Rebecca's.
the body in there is Rebecca.
Yeah. Which
From David O. Selznick.
they had told us earlier on, one of the characters tells us that like the body of Rebecca, when Rebecca's body was originally found, that Max had identified it. So we immediately know there's some trouble here, and that Max has not told the whole story because he said that the body they found was her.
Yeah.
So clearly he's lying.
Yeah, exactly. So
Did he murder her?
Did Laurence Olivier, played by Kenneth Branagh, murder an invisible woman named Rebecca?
Did she suddenly get too smart and he was like, I can't love you?
I mean, like, this is the 1940s. Men
Actually-
did not like smart women.
Actually, maybe kinda, but we'll get there.
Well, anyway, we will get there. Actually, we're going to get there literally
That's
right
kind of
now.
now, yeah.
Yeah, it's literally right now. So, Joan Fontaine, the second Mrs. De Winter, or I, goes into the dockhouse that we talked about earlier.
Yes.
Max is sitting in there. She apologizes for the costume. Max goes, "Oh, that thing? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I'm thinking about that boat that's out on the ocean.
Yeah,
and
I got
that
bigger
body-
problems, lady.
And that, I'm sorry, I'm not worried about your dress right now.
So-
I think I might have committed murder.
This scene is a tooth-pulling, mind-numbingly long exposition scene that is brilliant and awesome and
Because-
so entertaining, and the best ghost part of the movie for my money because of the way he shoots it.
Yeah, so part of it does attribute to Laurence Olivier is a great actor.
Yes, he
He's
does
a
a good
wonderful
job here.
actor. Joan Fontaine, also a great actress, so she is playing off of him
She's
correctly.
very good at sitting and saying, "What?"
Well, no,
I'm just kidding.
I
I'm kidding.
love you.
I'm
Like,
kidding.
Oh, actually, like the whole when he does the moment of like, I didn't love Rebecca, I hated her.
Oh,
And
yes.
she just reacts like it does seem melodramatic from a modern lens. However, she's processing grief. One, the way you processed grief in the 40s, which was to take a few steps back and look terrified.
And maybe go, "Oh."
Yeah, when people saw the end of Casablanca and saw that Rick didn't get the girl at the end, they took a few steps back and went, "Oh!" So, she's responding. She's playing off of him really well.
Yeah.
But as you're talking about, this is a thing that Hitchcock does to tell the story of Rebecca almost through pure cinema terms. Our listeners will be familiar. Pure cinema is trying to use the camera to tell the story. Trying to use the camera to tell the story with as little words, or in the case of silent films, dialogue cards, as possible. Unfortunately, it is not possible to do that entirely without Max describing it. But you could turn off the sound in that moment and kind of get a sense of Rebecca as a character just in that moment, because you're following her movements.
Right.
Now
that's the key.
But on a realistic level,
but she's not there.
Yeah. But on a realistic level, it's a creative way of getting around doing a flashback where you have to look at Rebecca as a person.
Yeah, and make her a person at all, right? Like
exactly.
because she's not even cast in the film. What I was going to describe the scene as basically a flashback filmed in the present, where he's going to describe what's happening and this conversation they're having that they had in this room, and this argument that they had, and the camera's going to follow where they were during that conversation, and so the other characters are going to come in and out of the frame based on whether or not the original argument was had where they are, but the camera doesn't care about the characters today. The camera cares about the characters a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever this was.
Right. And this is also like, again, it's a way to keep Rebecca as a presence in the film.
Yes.
So it's revealed that Max has not been. Well, we haven't even talked about who Rebecca is.
I was going to say, it's actually, this is the only shot of the movie where the camera follows Rebecca, and Rebecca remains never in the film.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but it turns out that Rebecca De Winter, when she married Max, was marrying him for, well, one, for his money and influence and station, but had no intention of holding to marital vows. She was going to play the part so that she could fool around behind his back, or in this case, right in front of him.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe what you classify that as in the period. Like there's like, I guess, like party girl or something like that.
Yeah, it's a weird. It's a melodramatic character who probably can't actually exist.
Yeah.
Because the whole scene is a convenient release of Max.
Yeah.
Like that scene, her character is made almost cartoonishly evil. It's why you couldn't put her in the movie, because if you actually shot that scene as a flashback where she's like, I've spent months making you fall in love with me and hiding the fact that I have like the most evil, sinister plans for you ever.
I didn't tell you I was fucking my cousin, but here we are.
Yes, yeah.
Which is true, and this is a scene we need to talk about.
Yeah.
She has a favorite cousin played by a very oh god, what's his name? But he has
a car salesman. Yeah,
like a car salesman of a British era. George Sanders. Yeah. She has her first cousin played by George Sanders.
And he's a car salesman.
Yeah, works Rebecca's first cousin and lover and car salesman.
Yes.
And they're having affairs. Rebecca even seduced the financial manager at one point. To which Max says, "Poor him."
Yeah.
You know, and she implies that she got pregnant to Max. And that won't it be funny that the heir to the De Winter throne will not be a De Winter?
Yeah,
and you're such a fool. Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and so he strikes her.
Maniacal laugh.
Yeah, Chris Cooper. Yeah, and then Max and then Rebecca and Chris Cooper went off to stop the Muppets from having their theater back. Like I said, Jason Segel's Muppet movie is pretty amazing when you think about it through that lens. But he hits her. And she falls back and falls onto...
She sort of falls through an open door into some rope and some...
into sea-going equipment.
Yes, into some kind of equipment that we as landlocked lubbers do not know what to call it. But there's like still there big metal things you could hit your head on and die.
Well, that's the anchor room. That's where you put your used anchors.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah, you know that every house has an anchor room when you live on the East Coast near a beach.
Yes. So she falls onto a giant anchor.
Yeah, exactly.
Or bursts her head open.
Or something of that nature. Like, and one of the great lines, like, I was wondering why she was still smiling at me, and then I realized she was dead.
She conveniently fell through a door onto some bullets and died. Again, a very convenient release for Max. But if we take everything he says at his word, she was a terrible person and she died.
So what's Max's problem? A tune killed his wife, dropped a piano on his head.
And at this point, he's believing she died pregnant.
Yes, exactly. So that fuels his guilt and frustration. Like everything's very convoluted, and he keeps saying, "I knew Rebecca would win in the end."
Yeah.
So he goes to identify the body. They tell him like, "No, everything's gonna be fine, except we have to do another hearing about it in order to clarify the issue."
Yeah. The cops are kind of assuming that he just got the body wrong the first time.
Yeah, and at this point, Joan Fontaine and Max's relationship is a lot stronger because now she knows why he's been so distant.
Yeah.
And so he goes to the hearing with Joan Fontaine present. Yeah. There we hear testimony from Matthew McConaughey as the beach hermit. Yeah. And he says, I didn't see nothing. He keeps basically saying the same thing. It's implied that he's a slower fella.
Yeah.
And they just say, like, well, he's not really a witness. And Rebecca's cousin,
the car salesman,
objects and kind of questions the whole affair and corners Max. Max goes on the stand first.
Well, yeah, first Max goes on the stand, and he, even though she tells him, like, hey, you gotta be careful not to lose your temper, he starts to lose his temper. She faints at a very convenient time, and they call a break, which leads to one of my favorite scenes where, so they go out to the car, and they're gonna eat their lunch in the car. They've got, like, this little picnic with some brandy and some legs of chicken, and the car salesman guy pops his head in the window like some kind of cartoon Disney villain, usually played by either a badger or a wolf.
Yeah.
Like the bad guys from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, who are always
the
trying
weasels?
to shoot. Yeah, he basically shows up like an animated weasel and pops his head in and starts talking about how smooth and cool he is, and takes one of their chicken bones and gnaws on the chicken bone, throws it out the window like, I don't give a shit. And then Max shows back up and he's like, what the fuck are you doing here? I don't like you. You know I don't like you. And he starts to say, like, well, I have this letter you might be interested in. And this letter happens to be dated that the day that Rebecca died, and it's from her, and the way it's written certainly doesn't sound like somebody who would have committed suicide, which is, currently how Max is going to get out, because they all think that she committed suicide.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'd really like to talk to you about my ambitions to live a comfortable life and never work again.
Yeah.
Basically saying, like, hey, if you pay me enough money, I'll just, like, not tell them, and we can pretend like Rebecca died.
And then much like the weasels, he says, keep this up, and or I'll leave you and your laundry out to dry. I just like that Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a secret Rebecca sequel.
It's such a mustache twirly great scene. Like, I just adore it.
He's wonderful in the film. George Sanders is great in the film. Like, it's just
so good.
It's that inflection and that vocal inflection he's kind of using just because it's his natural accent, but it's the way he's using it.
He's the best at acting with a chicken bone.
That, and also gracefully entering and exiting windows. In the first scene when we see him, he hops over that thing like a kid of 12. Right. Like just a young kid, like bursting through like hopping over a fence elegantly.
Yeah.
Like that, because as grown men we can't do that, but somehow George Sanders can.
Yeah.
What's the deal
he's
with
just
that?
Like, well, he's
and
very good at being in places
when he does it.
Yeah, he's very good at being in places he's not supposed to be and isn't wanted.
I know. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So, do you think he was at Watergate?
Yeah.
But so anyway, Favell says, "I've got this letter. Sounds like Rebecca wasn't going to kill herself." They confront each other in a diner. The cop who's investigating takes Maxim, Favell, and they go to the doctor of Rebecca.
Yeah. Well, it's revealed that, so they go back in and Max says, like, hey, this guy's trying to blackmail me. And then the car salesman pulls in Danvers and is like, Danvers, did you think she was going to kill herself? And she's like, no, but I don't know. I can't talk about this. And he finally convinces her, like, hey, she had a doctor's appointment here because she had, like, a secret abortion doctor here in the city. Like, she was here to see this doctor. She was here that day because she told me, like, what, tell them that you know. Because she says, like, yeah, she had this doctor that she saw even before she was married. That was her mystery, like, little, scummy doctor. And they don't say that's what it was for, but that's what it was for.
It's the implication,
Yeah.
I mean, and we'll get to it here in a second after that reveal, because this brings into a lot of the discussion about an issue of the time period that leads to interesting things. But anyway, it's revealed that Rebecca was not only not pregnant, but she was close to dying of cancer.
Yes, the doctor, just when the salesman thinks he's got Max in his clutches, and Max is like, "Oh shit, it's all gonna come down on my head." The doctor reveals, like, "No, yeah, she came here, but she wasn't pregnant. She had terrible cancer and was gonna die in a few weeks." And when I said, "You're gonna die in a few weeks," she said, "Much sooner than that, doctor."
And then they all looked up at the air, and then you heard a big
yeah, and all of the cops are like, "Well, all right, that sounds like suicide then." And even the salesman's like, "What the fuck? Like, no."
Which, by the way, that's a ill-named ska band in the 90s. This sounds like suicide.
Sounds like suicide. Yeah.
But so they say, "Well, case closed. I guess we'll go back to Manderley." But as this has all been happening, which, okay, before we get to that, so Max's escape route as a character in this film via the murder, with it being an accident in the film, is one of those things of the era that you have to change in order to make the character more likable in any decade. In particular here, though, the Hays Code said it would have violated their rules if he as a character was committing intentional murder and then gets away with it at the end.
Gotcha.
And so that is why you make those changes.
Because in the book, does he intentionally murder her?
I believe so. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's all intentional. I have not read the book either, like you. So and I know out there in Radioland I am an idiot, but I will say that it lends a lot to stuff Hitchcock's had to put up with in terms of changing content, because he had to change suspicion in a very similar manner for RKO. But unlike Rebecca, you don't have 30 more minutes of plot after that kind of reveal and twist and change. In Suspicion, it's very much the last minute, and Cary Grant goes, nah, baby, this is what happened. What are you, fucking nuts? And then I like the idea of Cary Grant cursing, because it kind of pokes a hole in Ryan's like hero worship. But so anyway, and that's one of those things that I guess I'd wonder deep down if Selznick pushed that there to appease the censors, because it seems like he would have been a guy who was both successful enough and drugged up enough to just say fuck it and do it, because this is the guy who allowed the word damn on screen and then pushed it through the censors through by nook and by crook. And I also, because I don't believe that Hitchcock liked the change or appreciated it, but at this point Hitchcock is also frustrated because this is no longer a Hitchcock film. This is a David O. Selznick film with Alfred Hitchcock directing it.
And I think the movie would have been very different. I think you kind of have to take him at his word.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe that he did it on purpose, I think the end of the movie has to be a much more Graduate style ending, where she ends up with this guy, and it's tainted in a way that in the current version it's not, right? Like the current version in the end, sure, Manderley isn't there, but like their relationship, they're able to theoretically love each other in an honest way moving forward because there's no secrets anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if he actually killed her, like, you would need to really vilify Rebecca better than they do in order to justify it, right? She'd have to like really be looking to ruin his life in a way that's more than just like, you know.
Okay, so it was Selznick who wanted it to be faithful.
Yeah.
But to comply with the production code, they did have to change it. In the novel, Maxim shoots Rebecca, and in the novel, in the film, he only thinks of killing her and then pushes her and stuff. And like we say, the incurable cancer and not the pregnancy. And So therefore, it's declared a suicide, not a murder. So therefore, he's in the clear.
Right.
Even though he's still. What's interesting is that the character still retains a dark sensibility to him because he would have been close to doing it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, if we look at in terms of like.
And
character's dark intentions.
It's one of those things that, like, when they do the remake, you're going to have to be very careful on how you. They talk in the film a lot about him being like this traditional man who would never be able to stomach like his wife cheating on her the way, like, to the extent that like he might kill her just because she cheated on him.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'd have to find a way to really either sell that time period or, again, like I said, vilify her in a different way that makes it more pressing, because otherwise a modern audience watches that and goes like, why doesn't he just throw her ass out of the house and tell everybody, hey, she's been cheating on me, and if you don't believe me, go talk to all your husbands. Like, like in a modern context, like you just see so many ways where you could have gotten out of this without killing the person.
Yeah, and
so you'd need to either make that context of the time period and the expectations at the time and what you did and didn't do. Like the idea that, like, no, divorcing your wife, way worse than secretly murdering her.
Well,
like,
and again, this is a time period where divorce is a big old no-no. I mean, like, for God's sakes, that's the reason Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn don't marry, guys, is because Tracy stayed faithful to his wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because like like I say, it's either that or make Rebecca a sci-fi remake and just set it in space where the rules don't apply anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, so as Max is being cleared, though, Joan Fontaine's just left alone with Crazy Lady in the house.
Yeah, they both go back.
Yeah, exactly. She goes back alone. That's the thing. She goes back alone. I mean, the staff's
she fainted.
there. Yeah,
she fainted, so he sends her back to the house.
Yeah.
And then, unbeknownst to either of them, car sales guy calls Danvers and is like, yo, dog, did you know, turns out she wasn't pregnant. She had terrible cancer. Oops, she killed herself. And then we see Max coming home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we see that there's been a fire at Manderley.
Yeah.
But thankfully, Joan Fontaine did get out. But before that, though, we do see Mrs. Danvers roaming the halls of Manderley in the most... I think the only time I've ever seen stalking that creepy in a film of that era, and this is going to sound weird, is actually Dracula from 1931.
Sure.
And it's just some of the smaller shots where you see Bela Lugosi kind of walking through different parts of the parapets and stuff.
Yeah.
This is very similar, but like obviously much more elegant and shot by Hitchcock. So there's an element of her, like, we know she's going to set the fire. It's almost like she's like getting one last look at the house. Yeah. I don't know how to describe it.
Or she's continuing to do what she always did, which is tend to the house, but she's tending to the house while it burns down around her.
Exactly, because like, and I'm not even sure if her intention at this point is to kill Joan Fontaine.
I don't either.
I think it's to purge the area of Rebecca for good, or to go up in flames with her presence.
I think it's more that, like, more of a, like, look, if Rebecca can't have this, then no one should have it. Yeah. Like, this is all, only Rebecca is worthy of this amazing place.
Right, which we should also mention with Mrs. Danvers. In the novel, I did look this up earlier today. Mm-hmm. She's a much older lady. She's a mother. It's more of a mother complex, which would be appropriate for Hitchcock, given that he's handled this subject many times before and would continue to do it into one of his most famous films.
Yeah, it would make it a less sexual tension relationship and more of a which I think is more the intention in the book.
Yeah.
She's more like, oh, I raised this woman, and so I love her, and I think she's perfect.
Yeah.
And then, but it's also more ambiguous as to how she ends. It's not. It is not clear that she is in the house during the fire in the book. My understanding.
Yeah.
So
and in the case of Hitchcock making changes that I guess Selznick was fine with in this regard, because he did have a say over casting to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And Judith Anderson is much younger than what would be described in that book. So, at least by everything that I'm reading. So, by that logic, that's one of those things that Hitchcock ultimately has, like, this film is a series of compromises for him. Sure. But he manages to create an identifiable Hitchcock piece inside of a David O. Selznick production, which is a tough job. I mean, Gone with the Wind is an epic film, but it does not have really a director's identity in the film. There is a lot of the shots are dictated by what looks pretty, but they don't have the same intent as a director who's telling you this is why the shot works.
Sure.
And that's partially because Gone with the Wind went through 2 directors. So not everybody was working on it all at once. So, anyway, Dame Judith Anderson sets the house on fire. Max gets back. Oh no, my house is on fire. But Joan Fontaine comes out and is like, I got out fine.
Do we have any idea whether everybody else is okay?
It looks like the other staff is out on the
Oh
floor.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, no, they're just chilling out there, maybe eating a sandwich.
As long as whatever his name is, Rogers, the guy who almost gets blamed for breaking the china.
No,
that poor guy. As long as he made it out.
My theory is that when he saw Mrs. Danvers starting to set fire to the house, he went, "I'm out of here, man!" Like
this bitch
he
is
bolted.
crazy.
He bolted first. He's not even waiting to see if he's got a job tomorrow. He's just like, no, I'm sure my brother can get me a job on the Orient Express. Nothing will happen there like a murder. And then that's when he meets Hercule Poirot. And then Kenneth Branagh comes back into the moment again.
Yes.
So this is all a way of saying that Kenneth Branagh is a part of the Hitchcock universe and the Hercule Poirot universe. But so anyway, they meet up on the grounds going like, I'm fine. Well, where's Mrs. Danvers? They all look back. That house is in fucking flames. There's things falling from the rafters, and Mrs. Danvers has the look of the devil on her.
Yeah.
Or the look of, you know what it is? It's the look I get when I see a movie I really like, and I'm sitting in the theater watching it. And, but yeah, she goes down with the house. The camera kind of pushes through the wreckage of this fire in the West Wing, and we see the bed of Rebecca De Winter and the case for the lingerie still intact, but going up quickly to reveal the R on the pillowcase. And then it fades to the exterior of Manderley credits. There was another ending in this film that was proposed by David Amphetamine O. Selznick. And I'm going to try to recreate for you today how his pitch went. And then I want the whole house to go in flames. And then I want a giant R rising up from the smoke to show that the ghost of Rebecca is still there. The end, an Alfred Hitchcock picture. That is what Mr. O. Selznick wanted. He wanted a giant R in smoke to end this otherwise, up to that point, great movie. If somebody out there wants to make an animated version of this on the internet and see what it would look like and see how dumb it would look, please do it, because anything to further confirm that O. Selznick was a nut.
We didn't need that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Obviously, it gets taken out because Hitchcock is like, no, why? David, you're high.
People get it. We get it.
We get it. You know what? I've got this pillowcase right here that has the R already. We saw it on the lingerie. It's obviously very important to Mrs. Danvers as a character. Why don't I just push in on that, and then we cut to the exterior of Manderley, and then that's the end of the movie. Great, whatever. I'm working on intermezzo right now.
I'll just put up the title card again, and we'll all go home. It'll be great.
Yeah, and I seriously, I need to work on foreign correspondent because it's a much more important picture right now because the fucking Nazis are coming. So, and then that's the end of Rebecca, a very complicated film, both from the production aspects, from the character aspects. It's really one of the it's one of the earlier it's the earliest American Hitchcock horror film, really, if we're gonna because I do, after talking about it now, like, yeah, Rebecca's a horror movie. Like, you could show this at Halloween.
But it's certainly like an early horror film, right? Like it's a proto version of a ghost story, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, in the end, it's a mystery team reveal of, oops, there was no actual ghost. But still, it's definitely playing on the tropes.
Yeah. The film was declared a success by critics, and it earned much money at the box office.
All the money.
I was trying to pick up the actual numbers here. The budget was $1,288,000, and it went on to make $6 million.
Cool.
That's both in the U.S. and overseas. The film does get nominated for some Oscars. We get nominations for Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Actor, Olivier, Best Actress, Joan Fontaine, Best Supporting Actress, Judith Anderson, Best Editing, Best Music Score, Best Art Direction, Black and White, Best Special Effects, which is correct, Best Cinematography, Black and White, which it wins for, and Best Picture, which it wins for Selznick International Pictures and David, he did amphetamines, Selznick. So the man who wanted the giant fucking R won the Oscar. Meanwhile, Best Director Alfred Hitchcock, that goes to John Ford.
For what?
John Ford for The Grapes of Wrath.
Oh, that movie's not as good.
I have you watched it recently?
Yeah. Well, no.
It's pretty good.
I watched it in high school.
I don't think it's the best directed film of the.
It was less boring than the book.
Let me tell you the nominees here. And I'll state up front, John Ford, not one of my favorite directors, so that's why I might be throwing him under a bus. You've got Sam Wood for Kitty Foyle, which is an okay film.
Okay.
You got William Wyler for The Letter. I like William Wyler a lot because Spielberg likes William Wyler, and I think it's adorable when he talks about him in Five Came Back.
Yeah.
And then you got George Cukor for The Philadelphia Story. So if Hitchcock's not going to win, please give it to George Cukor for The Philadelphia Story because that's an adorable film. And then Alfred Hitchcock for Rebecca. I really think we can all agree should have gone to Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca's the best of them.
Interestingly enough, though, Foreign Correspondent by Hitchcock comes out this year as well and is also nominated for Best Picture and obviously does not win. And you had a lot of films from that year that are like great films that were nominated. The Great Dictator by Charlie Chaplin, that was nominated this year for Best Picture.
Wow.
The Letter, the Bette Davis film, The Long Voyage Home, Our Town, and The Philadelphia Story, Kitty Foyle. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. All This in Heaven, too. So, anyway, it's a big success, but unfortunately, it's a success for Selznick and not for Hitchcock. Hitchcock then proceeds to really try his hardest to get away from Selznick as fast as he can. What Selznick ends up doing is actually loaning him out to other studios, which is partially how he gets to do Foreign Correspondent. And then Suspicion and the stuff he does with RKO. And then the first thing he does with Universal, which is Shadow of a Doubt, which is his favorite film. The way Selznick did this is that he loaned Hitchcock out and then got paid for Hitchcock to do work for them. Hitchcock got paid, but Selznick got paid to do nothing.
So he's a pimp.
Yes. David O. Selznick was an amphetamine-ridden pimp. And you can quote me on that years later when I'm like writing a book about David O. Selznick, the fucknut. I will have that on the back of my own book to re-emphasize the statement.
Yeah.
The man who wanted the giant smoky R in the end of Rebecca got Best Picture.
I'm sure a lot of his ideas are in the film and are good.
Oh no, yeah. Again, like I'm making a joke because
I know.
He also does a lot of things that frustrate me as a personal film goer.
Yeah.
But anyway, though, the film has an outstanding legacy, though, regardless of the frustrations Hitchcock had with it.
Mm-hmm.
Hitchcock does leave Selznick's employ, and he forms Transatlantic Pictures with his friend Sidney Bernstein. They make Rope and Under Capricorn, and then those bomb. He makes Stage Fright that then gets taken over by Warner Brothers, and thus Hitchcock then becomes a free agent to the studios. He then ends up working for Paramount. So basically, there's a road that starts with Selznick, where he loses a lot of freedom he had in the British Gamow period, and he goes off after Rebecca and does things like Suspicion, Shadow of a Doubt, Foreign Correspondent, and really Spellbound, Notorious, and really establishes his vision because those studios allowed him to do basically what he wanted. Suspicion, there are concessions to it. Notorious, there are concessions, but mostly through a plot thing because of the atomic bomb at the time. But he gets to do a lot more. And so then finally when he gets even out of the transatlantic period, he has the full show. So much so that when he even gets the TV show, he has even more power. And that's how he gets to make something like Psycho and have as much power as he does in the 60s.
Yeah.
It's very outstanding for a director who most of his peers are already retiring at this point. Except for John Huston. John Huston decided to just do whatever he wanted and directed Annie in the 80s. But anyway, Rebecca also inspires a lot of other films. It's part of a gothic romance tradition. Or a gothic romance, gothic horror tradition. So like you've got your Wuthering Heights and other films like that, and other stories like that get turned into films too. In the more modern context, the most direct cousins to Rebecca at this point are Crimson Peak and Phantom Thread. At least those are the ones that I see the most of. Now you haven't seen Phantom Thread.
No. I always think of Rebecca more in line with like a William Faulkner short story. Like it's very Rose for Emily feeling. Reminds me a little bit of Poe's Fall of the House of Usher. Like just some of those same veins of like, yeah, you know, a lot of darkness tied to a location and that kind of thing.
Now I want to read the book and see how much that permeates, because the film gives off a Poe-like feeling, even though it's very European influence.
Yes.
Like the film is very European influence, and yet the specter of it feels like a Poe creation, which is not quite American, but has a tie to it somehow. Whether that's through our perceptions about how relationships work or how the structure of the family works and stuff like that. Those different horrors kind of permeate through, and also the way it's presented. Like Hitchcock and his cinematographer on this film really give us I think a representation of what essentially a universal horror movie would look like if it had a lot of money. That is kind of the vibe I get off of it.
Yeah.
Because like any Universal movie, you have your lighter moments, but when the moments are dark here, they're really dark. And then that's basically it for something like Rebecca. It's a film that I think, you know, it has 2 discs on a Criterion, and I know that sounds like a weird point, but hear me out. This film is so beloved and studied that you need 2 discs on a Criterion like that to get all the information you're getting. And we're not even presenting like the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Rebecca. One second.
There's a lot of cool stuff in there. I feel like if I'd seen this movie early in college, I could have written a number of essays. I could have worked it into like my lit theory classes, because there's some depth and some really cool, interesting stuff going on that is worth looking at.
Yep. So we have a little segment on the show called the Hitchcock Cameo Corner.
Oh yes, that was the other thing, is I don't remember where he is.
Oh, I'll tell you where he is.
Great.
So Favell, the cousin, the car salesman,
right,
goes to make a call in the phone booth
to Danvers at the end.
Yeah, to Danvers at the end. And who's walking by but a portly gentleman?
Sure.
And that gentleman is Alfred Hitchcock.
Sure.
Now, the theory of this show is that the Hitchcock cinematic universe predates the Marvel cinematic universe.
Sure.
And it's all connected by Alfred Hitchcock popping into things.
Sure.
So we've already established that Hitchcock in North by Northwest missed a bus at the beginning, and then eventually found another bus, got on a plane, went to France, took a French bus, and then met Cary Grant on the bus. That explains the To Catch a Thief cameo.
Yes.
Then he came back to America, got a cowboy hat, and waited outside a real estate office to talk about some property. And then went and indulged in one of his favorite hobbies, which is walking his dogs, and he walked his dogs into a bird shop, and then he walked out of that bird shop as Tippi Hedren was walking in. And then later on, he went off to help his friend fix a piano, and while he was helping his friend fix a piano in this little Greenwich Village Square, his friend was on the piano, and he was saying, well, you should sing a song and then increase the speed, and then they'll sound like little rodents. And Hitchcock created the chipmunks. So it's my guess that since this takes place in Europe, that before Hitchcock's character got to France to meet with Cary Grant, he had to go to London.
Sure.
To do some business.
Galileo, his boat landed in London first.
Yeah, and
then he took a plane over to France.
And he was like, I want a sandwich. And so he went and got a sandwich. And as he's walking away from having gotten that sandwich, George Sanders' character is there. And then he goes on a plane or on another boat to France. And then he goes to the bus where he meets Cary Grant.
I think that's perfect. I was going to recommend exactly that.
Oh, and also he flies back to America from France via the airport in Topaz. So already the connections. You know what? There's going to be a photo at some point of me with one of those Jake Gyllenhaal webs from Zodiac.
You really do. You need to map all this out.
And then Chloe Sevigny is going to walk into my house going like, what do you need to know? And I go, I need to know who he is. That was so forceful, I knocked the mic out. But so anyway, that's the Hitchcock Cameo Corner.
Cool.
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out how Kevin Feige didn't do this first.
Where in the world was Alfred Hitchcock?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not as fun as Where in the World was Carmen Sandiego, and it was very much less educational.
I was going to say, it requires me to know less about geography.
Yeah, exactly, and much more about food and wines. But that's basically the end. Do you have any final thoughts on Rebecca, James? Because we've touched on a lot here.
I think we covered it. I mean, I might say that if there's a remake in the 90s I've never seen, I would say that for the remake
was
next
it Radical?
Year, no, oh, God, you wish. No, who's in it now? I can't remember. I want to say it's
look it up right here.
I want to say it's somebody like Rebecca De Mornay, but it's not. But that'd be great.
That would be terrible.
I think it's 1997. It might be made for TV. And then I would say for the remake next year, they could just get Jay Leno to play Max, or at least Jay Leno's chin. Jay Leno's chin on Armie Hammer.
I don't want Max de Winter to be talking about his garage.
No,
or stealing Conan O'Brien's job.
Armie Hammer plays Max de Winter, but Jay Leno's chin plays Max de Winter's chin.
But I'm afraid that chin will become possessed and start wanting to talk about jaywalking segments.
It's possible.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, this is just not a risk I'm willing to take.
I think in today's world where we can have human beings CG'd to look like terrible cat freaks, we can use that same technology to put Jay Leno's chin onto Armie Hammer's face.
If we can,
I just think I believe you know what, this holiday I believe.
Yeah. And cut to David Duchovny going, Do you believe? I mean, if we live in a world where we can make Peter Cushing come back from the dead, then yes,
right.
It is possible.
Exactly.
I will offer the counterpoint: get Ben Affleck's chin, because it's much more restrained when necessary. Jay Leno's chin will go over the top.
Like I'm pretty sure you could Laurence Olivier could hold a penny in his chin. Like you could just like squeeze it in there and it would stick. Mm-hmm. Like, so I'm just saying, like, you need a very pronounced chin.
You need the chinniest of chins. Would you say it's a chinnery, chin-chiroo?
You need a like Kirk Douglas chin.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think we could? Well, we could find older Kirk Douglas chins and then and then make them younger via the CGI and then put it onto Armie Hammer.
Okay, I'll settle for that. If I'll settle for a CG version, a Peter Cushing CG version of Kirk Douglas's chin on Armie Hammer
from 20th.
If we can't get Jay Leno, if Jay's too busy,
Yeah.
If Jay's chin's too busy.
Yeah, I would say it'd have to be Kirk Douglas from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It can't be any other film. Like Spartacus doesn't work. It's too brightly lit. You need something a little bit more coolly lit, and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea takes place in a cool environment, which is the ocean.
Sure.
So, to answer your question about the 1997, it did not have Rebecca De Mornay.
Who was it?
It has. It was a British-German television show, and actually, fellow real nerd Corinne has talked about this with me before. It has Charles Dance.
Yes.
Diana Rigg plays Mrs. Danvers. Amelia Fox plays the second Mrs. De Winter. And then Faye Dunaway's in it. Jonathan Cake. Geraldine James. Lucy Cohu.
I just realized why I get confused. Rebecca De Mornay plays Lady De Winter in the Disney Three Musketeers film. So, hence, possibly. Actually, no. 100%,
so hence this was way off.
100% the most attractive Lady De Winter.
Yeah. Charles Dance in this is Maxim De Winter. So
there you go.
That's a pretty good.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get Charles Dance's chin.
Yeah.
To substitute.
See, I'm just saying, chin very important to the role.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
So anyway, that's
Rebecca.
all I got. James, do you have anything you want to plug before you leave our good graces here at the Shamley Silhouette?
Every now and then I guest spot on a podcast called the Real News Podcast, which is also where you're hearing this.
No, you are still a host of the show.
Man, no, I think this is it. I think this is it.
This is your last podcast?
This is the end.
Good night.
This is the end of all the things I'm ever going to do.
Well, here we are.
18 years from now, you can expect something else from me.
Yeah, here we are at the end of all things. There's a boat with Hugo Weaving and Hela from Thor Ragnarok and the clock from Beauty and the Beast, who was also Sherlock Holmes in that older Sherlock Holmes movie that I love called Mr. Holmes. And they're going to take young Kevin from Sin City and the scientist from Day After Tomorrow off
and
to
Rudy.
the Grey Shores.
Rudy's there, and he's very sad.
Yeah, Rudy's very sad.
Bob is a superhero.
Peregrine Took, because I don't remember what else Billy Boyd's
Wow.
been. Oh, I'm sorry.
That guy from Master and Commander. Thank you.
That guy who plays Chucky and Tiffany's son in Seed of Chucky.
Wow.
Yeah, that is true. And also that guy from Lost, who was also on the Big Three podcast for a while.
Yeah.
So,
Evangeline Lilly's ex-boyfriend.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I don't know. Got all kinds of dish for you.
Welcome to our new show, LOTR Gossip.
Yeah,
that's not gossip.
I'm going to start a new podcast that's just gossip about the people from Lost from back when Lost was on TV.
Do you time travel back to do
No. No, we just gossip about. We just talk about all the things that were fun to talk about back when Lost was on TV. Oh man, did you see that video where like the mice get into Jorge Garcia's house or whatever it was? No, it was a giant spider, whatever it was.
My God, did you see that trailer for Cloverfield? I think I saw Slusho in there.
Slushos. Oh man, remember Heroes? It was gonna be good. Oh
yeah. These are the things you could talk about in the late 2000s. You know,
man, Slusho was a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, hey guys, they're gonna make a Transformers movie. Oh.
Do you think Slusho will make an appearance in Quentin Tarantino's fucking Pulp Fiction in space? God damn it, that's not what I want.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I haven't thought it out yet. I know there's going to be some Red Apple cigarettes. I know that there's going to be a jukebox and a jukebox in space. Can you dig it, man?
People do not smoke in space.
And you know what? And they're going to talk about space foot massages. They're not going to talk about just regular old foot massages. Check. I like doing Quentin. And what's sad is that I don't want to. I don't want to make fun of it, but I'm just like, that is a very unique speaking style. So anyway, that has been the Shamley Silhouette for this week. Check back with us twice a week to hear more fun and possibly insightful conversations about the work of Alfred Hitchcock. You can follow me on Instagram at RealNerdZach. You can follow me also on the Real Nerds Podcast, where I podcast each and every week about the movies that we see. By the time this is released, we may be talking about an August movie of some kind. I don't know, maybe Hobbs and Shaw for all I know.
Hobbs and Shaw.
There's also the possibility that I won't be on that week because I may be out of town. But anyway, and then, like I say, next episode, we will be talking to a wonderfully creative gentleman who is going to come with us to discuss not a specific film, but a certain aspect of an entire career, and how Alfred Hitchcock took very lowbrow concepts and turned them into high art. So until next time, this has been the Shamley Silhouette. Good night.